But even he couldn't deny the truth. The network had proof someone inside had betrayed them. As dawn crept closer, fear turned into desperation. Some officers argued they should name a scapegoat, give the network anyone just to buy time. Others refused, insisting they couldn't play the killer's game. But then, a chilling discovery shifted everything. On Blake's desk, investigators found a torn page, coded numbers, dates, and addresses. The same addresses linked to the network's safe houses. Had Blake been feeding them? Or had the evidence been planted to frame him? No one could be sure. The live feed flickered again. Ruiz, weak and pale. Blake, eyes wide with panic. The voice returned. Time is almost up. Name the traitor, or watch them burn together. And as the feed zoomed out, investigators saw something new. Cans of gasoline stacked around the two men. A trail of fuel already lit, slowly burning its way closer. Asterisk, the network had turned the clock into a fuse. If investigators didn't make their choice, both Ruiz and Blake would die in flames. But what if the real traitor wasn't either of them? What if the true insider was still in the room? Asterisk, the network's game escalated. Two detectives, Ruiz and Blake, were held captive, surrounded by gasoline. The network's demand was brutal. Name the traitor by dawn or watch them both burn alive. But as the fuse crept closer, one question remained. Were either of them guilty, or was the true traitor still inside the room? The live feed showed flames crawling along the gasoline trail, inching toward Ruiz and Blake. Both struggled, screaming against their restraints. Inside the precinct, panic reached its peak. Officers yelled over each other, desperate to decide. Every second lost meant another inch of flame. Detective Harris leaned forward, his voice steady. If we choose wrong, we're murderers. If we don't choose at all, we're still murderers. The room fell silent. Suddenly, Blake shouted on the feed, his gag slipping free. It wasn't me. Check my desk. The papers. They planted them. Please. And then Ruiz, coughing, managed a single word. Inside. The camera zoomed closer, almost taunting them, forcing the investigators to see every drop of sweat, every flicker of fire. The voice returned. 10 seconds. The team snapped. A junior officer pointed at Blake, insisting the evidence was too much to ignore. Others shouted that it was a trap. But before any decision could be made, the screen changed. The flames reached the chairs. Ruiz screamed. Blake thrashed. And then darkness. The feed cut. Everyone froze, staring at the blank screen. Had they just watched two of their own burn alive? Or was it another illusion? Another manipulation? Before anyone could process, a loud clank echoed from the far end of the precinct. A storage room door, locked for years, now wide open. Inside, they found a single object, a precinct-issued badge, charred, and underneath it, a note. He chose for you. Asterisk, 2 detectives gone. The ultimatum shattered, and a traitor still in their midst. But now, the investigators had a horrifying new question. If the network had already chosen, who among them had just betrayed them all? Asterisk, the network forced investigators into an impossible choice. Ruiz and Blake, bound and surrounded by fire, were consumed in a blaze as the feed cut to black. And when the flames were gone, only one message remained. He chose for you. The question now was terrifying. Who inside the precinct had already betrayed them all? The precinct was fractured, sleep-deprived, paranoid, and furious. Every officer turned inward, questioning not just their colleagues, but their own instincts. The badge found in the storage room belonged to Ruiz. But no body, no confirmation, just ashes and a note. It was bait, another trick. Detective Harris slammed the table. This was never about them. It was about us. Someone here is feeding them. Investigators scoured communication logs, badge swipes, and surveillance footage inside the precinct. At first, nothing. But then one anomaly surfaced. An officer's ID card had been used to access restricted files. At the same exact time, that officer was documented across town on a separate call. It was impossible unless someone had duplicated the card. The officer in question, Officer Daniels. When Daniels was brought in, he looked exhausted, pale, his hands trembling. He swore he wasn't involved, that someone was framing him. But in his locker, investigators uncovered something that couldn't be ignored. A burner phone, hidden in the lining of his jacket. And on it, messages, instructions, coordinates, all matching the network's known movements. Daniels broke down in tears. "You don't understand. I didn't have a choice." As the room pressed him for answers, Daniels whispered, "They own everything. The money, the judges, the prisons. They said if I didn't help them, they'd burn my family alive." But before he could say more, a piercing beep echoed from the phone in his hand. A countdown, 30 seconds. Daniels' eyes widened in terror. "It's too late." Asterisk, the precinct scrambled, throwing the phone into a blast box as the countdown ticked to 0. And as the explosion ripped through the room, one truth became clear. Daniels may not have been the mastermind, but he was only the first. The network had more traitors, and the next one was already waiting to strike. Asterisk, Officer Daniels was exposed as the first mole inside the precinct, but his confession revealed something darker. He hadn't acted alone. He was forced into it, blackmailed by the network, and before investigators could learn more, a planted phone detonated, silencing him forever. But the explosion left one truth no one could deny. Daniels was only the first. The precinct reeked of smoke and fear. Shattered glass littered the floor, walls charred from the blast. Daniels was gone, but the case wasn't over. It had only deepened. If Daniels had been nothing more than a pawn, then who was pulling the strings? Detective Harris studied the fragments of the burner phone. On its scorched screen, a single text managed to survive. Backup secured. Phase 2 begins. It meant there was another mode. Someone with deeper access, more control. Someone who could move undetected even as suspicion grew. Investigators began reviewing case files. And that's when a chilling realization surfaced. The network had known every step before they made it. Every raid, every safe house, every lead, which meant the second mole wasn't just passing information. They were steering the investigation. Old case reports showed edits, names of suspects crossed out, details altered, evidence redirected. All of it designed to keep the network one step ahead. And one officer's signature appeared on nearly every altered file. Sergeant Miller. Miller was a veteran, 20 years on the force. Respected, trusted, the kind of man no one would question. But as the team dug deeper, cracks appeared. His financials didn't add up. Offshore accounts, sudden deposits, a lifestyle too clean, too precise. When confronted, Miller didn't deny it. He just smiled. "You still think this is about one man? One network? You have no idea how far it goes." Before investigators could arrest him, Miller slid a key across the table. "Locker 23. You'll understand soon enough." Inside the locker, they found a black case, and within it, stacks of classified files. Victims, suspects, officers, all marked with the network symbol. But there was one more file on top, Detective Harris. But Miller's files revealed something even more terrifying. Detective Harris himself had been a target all along. And now, the team had to ask, was Harris just another victim or the network's final piece? Asterisk, Sergeant Miller was exposed as the second mole, but before his arrest, he handed investigators a black case filled with classified files, each marked with the network symbol. Victims, suspects, even officers. And at the very top was a file with one name, Detective Harris. The question was no longer if Harris was a target. It was why. The Harris file was thicker than the rest. Photos, reports, even transcript of conversations Harris swore he never had. It was as though the network had been documenting his entire life. Every step, every decision. Inside was a chilling detail. Harris's name appeared in connection with cases years before he even joined the force, as if his fate had been written long before he wore the badge. One document stood out, a birth certificate. It wasn't Harris's. Not exactly. It belonged to someone else. Someone with his exact date of birth, his exact place of birth. his exact blood type, but the name was different, and in red ink, scrawled across the page were the words, "The original." Investigators pieced it together. Harris wasn't just a target. He was connected to the network in ways he had never understood. Was he chosen? Replaced? Or worse, was he part of something bigger? Something buried in his past? Harris sat in silence, staring at the file. His hands trembled as he whispered, "They've been watching me since before I was even born." At the bottom of the file was a photograph, a grainy, decades-old image of a hospital nursery, rows of newborns in tiny cribs. On the back of the photo, one crib was circled. The label on it read, "Baby Harris." But 2 cribs over, another baby was circled. Same date, same records, and beneath it a note, "The replacement lives." Asterisk, Detective Harris wasn't just a target. He was part of a mystery that stretched back to the day he was born. And if there really was a replacement, then somewhere out there, someone else had been living a life he was never meant to have. Asterisk, the Harris file revealed a truth no one expected. Harris wasn't just a target. He was part of the network story from birth. A photograph of a hospital nursery showed not 1, but 2 circled infants, one labeled Baby Harris, the other marked only with a note, "The replacement lives." Now, the question is no longer why Harris was chosen, but who has been living the life he never knew. The discovery shook Harris to his core. Every decision he had made, every case he had solved, had it really been his? Or had he been walking a path carved out long ago by someone else's design? Investigators scrambled for records, searching hospitals, birth certificates, adoption logs. But every file that could confirm or deny the replacement had been altered or erased. It was as if someone had gone back decades to wipe the truth away. Then came the first lead. A fingerprint found on the back of the nursery photo. Old, faded, but traceable. It matched someone who shouldn't exist. Someone with Harris's exact identifiers. A man with no legal identity, no address, no history, known only by one alias in underground records. The other, that night, Harris returned home to find an envelope slid under his door. No stamp, no markings. Inside, a single photograph. Harris himself, or at least someone who looked exactly like him, standing in a crowd across the street from the precinct, watching. On the back of the photo, one sentence was written, "You're living my life." Harris's hands shook as he showed the team. The resemblance was undeniable. The replacement wasn't a myth. He was real, alive, watching them, and worse. He had been close enough to the precinct to photograph Harris without anyone noticing. It meant the replacement wasn't hiding in the shadows anymore. He was moving into the light. Asterisk, for years, Harris believed he was chasing the network. But now, he realized he was being chased too. Not by strangers, but by a mirror. And if the replacement wanted his life back, how far would he go to take it? Asterisk, Detective Harris discovered the impossible. The network's files revealed another man. His mirror image, a ghost known only as a replacement. When a photograph surfaced showing this double watching from the crowd, the truth became undeniable. Harris wasn't just investigating a conspiracy. He was being stalked by it. And tonight, that shadow would finally step closer. The precinct set a trap. Surveillance teams blanketed the block where the replacement had last been seen. Cameras, undercover officers, unmarked cars. For hours, nothing. Then, at 2:11 a.m., movement. A man stepping out of the shadows. From a distance, he was Harris. Same build, same walk, even the same habit of tugging at his left sleeve. But when the cameras zoomed in, the truth hit harder. The face was Harris's, down to every scar. Officers closed in. The replacement turned his head, locking eyes with one of the cameras, and smiled, not a smirk of arrogance, but of recognition, as if to say, "I've been waiting," before the team could move. He dropped a small package onto the curb and vanished into the alleyways. By the time they reached the spot, he was gone. Inside the package was a recorder. The voice that played wasn't distorted. It wasn't masked. It was Harris's voice. "You think I'm the copy, but I'm not. You are. The room fell silent. Harris's face went pale. Every step you've taken, every case you've worked, every word you've spoken, I've given you those pieces. Now, I've come to collect them back. The message ended with a date and a time. Tomorrow, midnight, face to face. Harris sat in silence, trembling. The voice was identical. The cadence, the tone, it was him. The team tried to reassure him, but doubt crept into the room. If the replacement had access to Harris's life, his voice, his past, then who was a real copy? And more importantly, what would happen if the two of them finally stood in the same room? Asterisk, the replacement had set the stage. Tomorrow at midnight, the truth would be revealed. But the investigators weren't sure what terrified them more. The thought of catching a replacement or the possibility that Harris wasn't Harris at all. Asterisk, the replacement left a chilling message. A time, a place, and a promise to meet Detective Harris face to face. But with every step closer, the lines between hunter and hunted have blurred. And now, Harris must confront the terrifying possibility that the man he's chasing isn't an imposter, but himself. The clock struck midnight. The meeting point, an abandoned train station on the edge of the city, long sealed off, its platforms drowned in silence and dust. Harris arrived with a tactical team nearby, hidden but ready, yet he knew this encounter wasn't about weapons. It was about truth. The air was still. Then footsteps. From the far end of the platform, a man stepped into view. Same height, same eyes, same face. The replacement. For a moment, they just stared at one another. A mirror image, living and breathing. Then, the replacement spoke, the same voice, the same inflection. You feel it, don't you? The doubt. That gnawing question you've tried to bury. You're not the original. I am. Harris's chest tightened. His instincts screamed to deny it. But a lifetime of unanswered questions echoed back at him. The replacement stepped closer, holding up a file. Its cover bore the network seal. He tossed it at Harris's feet. Everything you are, every memory, every badge, every scar, it's all inside. A life built for you. And tonight, you'll finally see what was never meant to be yours. Harris picked up the file, his hands trembling as he opened it. Inside were photos of his childhood, his parents, his academy graduation, every milestone of his life. Except in every photo, Harris wasn't the one in the frame. It was him, the replacement. The ground felt like it was tilting beneath Harris. His entire life, was it staged? The replacement leaned in, whispering with a cruel smile. You've been living my shadow, and now I've come to take it back. Before Harris could respond, the platform lights flickered. A distant rumble echoed through the station. And then from the tunnels, figures emerged. One by one, dozens of them, faces obscured, each wearing the same mark of the network. Asterisk, Harris thought he was meeting one man. But as the shadows closed in, he realized this was never about two lives colliding. It was about the network making sure that only one of them walked out alive. Asterisk, Detective Harris finally met the replacement face to face. But before answers could come, the shadows of the network emerged, dozens of masked figures surrounding them in the abandoned station. Harris thought this was a meeting. He was wrong. It was a test. And the rules were simple. Only one of them would walk out alive. The air grew heavy as the masked figures closed in, forming a perfect circle around Harris and the replacement. One step forward, their voice distorted through a modulator. You are two halves of one life. Tonight, the network will decide which half remains. The circle tightened. No escape. No allies. Just the two of them. Trapped in the spotlight of a game they didn't understand. The replacement smiled, calm, almost rehearsed. You see? I told you this was never yours. Even they know who the original is. But Harris shook his head, anger slicing through his fear. If I'm not real, why have I been the one hunting you? Why am I the one still standing here? The masked leader raised a hand. Silence fell. Fight. Survive. One proves the truth. The other is erased. A weapon clattered to the ground between them. A single knife. The replacement picked it up first, twirling it effortlessly in his hand. "This ends tonight," he said, his eyes locked on Harris. But before the blade could strike, the platform lights dimmed again. From above, cameras whirred to life, blinking red. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were being watched, recorded, judged. Harris lunged, grabbing the knife, struggling against his double in a blur of fists and shadows. Every move mirrored, every strike countered. It was like fighting his own reflection, a reflection that seemed to know him better than he knew himself. The circle of masked figures didn't move. They simply watched, silent, expectant, until finally, the replacement whispered in Harris's ear during the struggle. "Even if you win, you lose. Because when this is over, you'll never know if you were the original or just a trick." Asterisk, blood at the concrete as a knife slipped from their grip. Both men collapsed, breathing heavy, their faces inches apart. The circle of masked figures leaned in, waiting to declare their verdict. But in the chaos, neither Harris nor the replacement realized that someone else had just stepped onto the platform. Someone neither of them expected. Asterisk, Harris and the replacement were forced into a brutal trial. A fight to the death under the watchful eyes of the network. Every strike mirrored, every move recorded. But just as the knife slipped and both men collapsed, another figure entered the platform. Someone no one expected, someone who might unravel everything. The masked circle froze, their eyes shifting toward the staircase at the far end of the platform. Slow, deliberate footsteps echoed in the silence. A woman emerged from the shadows. Her face was uncovered, her eyes calm, and Harris recognized her instantly. Elena. The name tore from his throat. Before he could stop it, it couldn't be her. Elena was supposed to be gone, silenced, erased. But there she stood, alive, unbroken, and carrying a leather-bound folder marked with the network symbol. The replacement expression faltered for the first time. "This isn't possible," he whispered. Elena stepped into the circle, ignoring the masked figures as though she had authority even they couldn't challenge. "The trial ends now," she said firmly. "Neither of them belongs to you." The masked leader raised a hand, as if to order her removal, but stopped when Elena dropped the folder to the ground. Paper spilled across the platform. Photos, contracts, names, evidence of the network's existence. Proof of everything they had buried. "You've hidden in the shadows for too long," Elena said, her voice steady. "But I've been keeping my own records." The circle wavered. Some masks turned toward each other, uncertain. Elena knelt between Harris and the replacement, placing a hand on each of them. "They were never meant to fight," she said softly, "because the truth is they are both pieces of the same lie." The replacement's eyes widened. Harris's chest went cold. What did she mean? Both of them a lie? Before either man could speak, Elena whispered something only they could hear. "You were never supposed to exist." Asterisk, the platform erupted into chaos. Masked figures shouted. The leader raised their hand to strike, and the cameras above whirred faster, recording every second. But in the center of it all, Elena stood calm, her eyes burning with a secret that could destroy them all. And as Harris locked eyes with her, one terrifying thought echoed in his mind. If neither he nor the replacement were real, then who the truth away? Elena shocked everyone by stepping into the trial alive, carrying proof of the network's existence. She stopped the fight between Harris and the replacement, whispering one chilling revelation. "You were never supposed to exist." Now, the truth begins to surface, but it's darker than anyone imagined. The circle of masked figures tightened, weapons raised. But Elena's presence froze them. Her voice was calm, unwavering. "You've all been living inside a story you didn't write. Harris, the replacement, even the so-called network. None of it started with you. It started long before you were born." She opened the folder again, holding up a page, a birth registry. 2 names side by side, both marked with the same identification code. Harris stared at it, heart pounding. "That's impossible," he muttered. "No 2 people can share the same code." Elena's eyes didn't waver, unless they were made to. The replacement's face went pale. He whispered the word neither of them wanted to hear. "Clones." The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. The network soldiers shifted uneasily, as though hearing it spoken aloud broke some unspoken rule. Elena knelt between them, her voice low but fierce. You weren't born. You were built, both of you, products of an experiment the network buried decades ago. One was meant to serve. The other was meant to disappear. Harris shook his head violently. No, that's not possible. My parents. Your parents were never told. Elena cut in. They raised you as their own, never knowing you weren't theirs. But the files don't lie. Both of you came from the same place, from the same secret project. You are the proof they never wanted to surface. The replacement smile was gone now, replaced with fear. If that's true, then why keep us alive? Why let us survive this long? Elena's eyes darkened, because they were waiting for the moment you would destroy each other. That was always the plan. 2 experiments, 1 survivor. The network's perfect heir. The masked leader stepped forward, confirming her words with chilling finality. Only one walks out. Asterisk. Harris's world shattered. His life, his memories, even his very identity, all manufactured. Now, standing beside his double, he faced a brutal truth. Neither of them were who they thought they were, and the network wasn't testing them anymore. It was choosing which one of them would replace it. Asterisk. Elena exposed the truth. Harris and the replacement weren't born. They were built. 2 products of an experiment buried decades ago. One meant to serve, the other meant to vanish. But the network never intended for both to survive. And now, the masked leader has spoken. Only one walks out. Yet what Harris doesn't know is that survival was never the end game. The platform fell into silence, broken only by the hum of the cameras above. The masked leader stepped closer, their voice calm, deliberate. You were not created to be destroyed. You were created to lead. The words hit harder than any blow. Harris and the replacement exchanged stunned looks. Led? The network wasn't choosing a survivor. It was choosing an heir. Elena's face hardened. This is their true design. A successor, crafted in secret, molded from birth. That's why you were both watched. That's why every move was documented. You weren't accidents, you were auditions. The replacement's eyes narrowed, almost intrigued. So this was never about erasing me. It was about proving which of us is strong enough to inherit the throne. The masked circle bowed their heads slightly, as if acknowledging the truth in his words. Harris shook his head in disbelief. No, I became a detective. I chose my path. I fight for justice. The masked leader interrupted, sharp and cold. You chose nothing. Every case, every clue, every step has been part of our script. You've been walking the road we built for you. And now it ends where it began. Elena grabbed Harris's arm, her voice fierce. Don't listen to them. If either of you takes their crown, you become what they made you to be, another link in the chain. That's not leadership. That's slavery. The replacement's lips curved into a faint smile. Maybe slavery to them, but maybe power for me. He stepped toward the leader, as if ready to embrace the destiny laid out for him. Harris's chest tightened. Was his double truly willing to take the network's throne? The leader raised their hand, signaling the circle to kneel. One word echoed through the station. Choose. Asterisk, Harris stood frozen. Elena's grip tightened on his arm. The replacement moved closer to the network's outstretched hand. And in that instant, Harris realized a terrible truth. This wasn't just about survival. It was about whether the network's heir would be him or his reflection. Asterisk. The truth was revealed. Harris and the replacement weren't just experiments. They were candidates. The network's future heir. But when the masked leader demanded one to be chosen, Harris faced the unthinkable. To fight, to submit, or to defy the very destiny written for him. The abandoned station pulsed with silence. Every masked figure kneeled, their loyalty fixed not to Harris or the replacement, but to the choice itself. The leader's voice broke the stillness. The crown belongs to one. The other must fall. The replacement stepped forward, confidence dripping from every movement. I'll take what was always mine. Harris's heart pounded. Every instinct told him to fight, but Elena's voice cut through the storm. Don't play their game, Harris. That's what they want, for you to kill him and wear their crown. Harris's mind raced. If he killed the replacement, the network would win. If he refused, they'd crown his double. It wasn't a battle of fists anymore. It was a battle of will. He clenched his fists, staring at the leader. What if I choose neither? A ripple of unease spread through the circle. The leader tilted their head. Then both of you die. The replacement laughed, a sharp, unnerving sound. You hear that? There is no choice. You die or I lead. That's how this ends. But Elena suddenly stepped between them, holding up the scattered documents she had carried. You want a leader? Then look at your own lives. This network survives on secrets, manipulation, control. But what happens if the world sees the truth? If these files leave this room? For the first time, the leader faltered. The circle shifted nervously. Harris's pulse quickened. Elena had cracked their shield. He looked at the cameras, blinking red, recording everything. You built us to replace you, Harris shouted, his voice echoing. But you made one mistake. You let us see the truth. If I fall here, your secrets don't die with me. They go with her. The replacement's eyes narrowed. His smirk faded. For the first time, doubt crept across his face. Asterisk. The leader's hand hovered in the air. The circle of masked figures stirred, caught between obedience and fear. And Harris realized he hadn't just broken their rules. He had given them a new one. The network demanded a choice. But the true question was this. What would happen if the choice was theirs to make? Asterisk. Harris defied the network's ultimatum. Instead of choosing to fight or submit, he threatened to expose their darkest secret, that he and the replacement were engineered to inherit the throne. For the first time, the masked circle hesitated. And hesitation inside a cult this powerful is dangerous, because hesitation breeds revolt. The platform was silent except for the hum of the cameras, capturing every word, every movement. The leader's hand remained frozen in the air, but the circle below began to stir. One masked figure lowered their weapon, then another. Harris saw it, the cracks forming in their obedience. He's right, one voice muttered. We were promised truth, but we've been fed lies. Another mask turned, speaking more boldly. If the files are real, then what else are they hidden from us? The leaders slammed their staff against the ground. Silence. But the command didn't carry the weight it once had. The replacement saw the shift too. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the tension. You don't need their lies. You need strength. I can give it to you. Follow me, and I will lead this network into the future. A few masks turned toward him, nodding, but others shook their heads, murmuring about Elena's evidence. The circle was splitting in two. Suddenly, a masked soldier ripped off their hood, throwing it to the ground. A woman's face stared back, determined, unafraid. We've been used long enough, she said. If these files are true, then we've been following ghosts. I won't bow to lies anymore. Chaos erupted. Some surged forward to defend the leader. Others backed away, uncertain. The unity that once made the network untouchable was fracturing before Harris's eyes. Elena's voice cut through the chaos. This is your chance. You don't need leaders chosen in secret. You don't need heirs bred in shadows. The power is yours if you take it. The leader's mask turned toward her, their voice shaking with fury. You dare turn my children against me? But the word children made the crowd pause. Murmurs rippled through the circle. Had they all been experiments? Were they all born from the same hidden project? The replacement's smile widened.